Humanity. The species with amnesia. There is a reality that few are willing to admit. Even though humanity has set foot on the moon and unlocked the code of its own DNA, we are still a species with amnesia right here on this very planet. No matter how many studies are published, and no matter how many methods modern scientists use, we have yet to fully and seamlessly reconstruct the history of human development, from the very beginning up to the present day. Somewhere along the timeline that stretches back hundreds of thousands of years, there are still vast gaps that no one can fill, empty spaces about those first civilizations that once appeared and vanished, leaving behind no clear trace. It is ironic that in the modern era, people tend to overlook some of the most important clues ever left behind by our ancestors in ancient records. Among these, the ancient legends of the Sumerians are regarded as some of the most valuable sources about humanity's origins. Thousands of years ago, Sumerian civilization flourished in the land of Mesopotamia. Not only did they create the world's first writing system, but they also recorded in painstaking detail stories and legends about the formation and destiny of humankind on clay tablets. These legends are not simply tales or the imagination of people from long ago. Embedded within them are strange details about the birth of our species. Unfortunately, most of what the Sumerians recorded has been dismissed or excluded from mainstream history by modern scientists, who claim it is nothing more than collective imagination or ancient myth with no real value. Yet, if one day humanity is truly willing to take these stories seriously, perhaps from those forgotten pages of history, we will find the surviving clues of a lost civilization, precious fragments that might bridge the gaps in our timeline and reveal a mysterious past that humans have never stopped searching for. The Pyramids and the Sphinx. The Pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx have always stood as symbols of ancient Egyptian civilization. At the same time, they have inspired endless debates for centuries about mysteries of time and construction techniques that seem to defy all imagination. According to conventional knowledge, the pyramids are believed to have been completed around 2550 BC. Yet the mysteries behind them have steadily shaken traditional theories, as more and more evidence emerges that is difficult to dismiss. Some scholars believe that these two monumental structures may be far older than what is commonly recorded in history books. The Bible, Sumerian legends, and many other ancient sources all speak of a great flood that swept across the world at different points in time. When comparing these timelines, it is possible that the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx had already stood on the banks of the Nile long before that global catastrophe ever occurred. What has forced researchers to reconsider their entire understanding of Egyptian history are the signs of erosion on the back of the Sphinx. These are not simply the marks of desert wind and sand. Geological studies have shown that this erosion was caused by prolonged, heavy rainfall. This has led some bold scientists to propose a new theory. Could it be that the Sphinx and the pyramids date back to a period when Egypt was still green, when rivers and lakes and long rainstorms were still part of the landscape here? But the mysteries surrounding these two structures are not limited to geology and climate. Their origins are also closely tied to legends of Atlantis. Many researchers have suggested that the ancient Egyptians may have been the descendants of survivors from Atlantis, bringing with them memories, knowledge, and secrets of architecture, astronomy, and mathematics that modern humanity still cannot fully explain. Because of all this, the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx are not just magnificent material legacies, they are also a challenge left for future generations, a veil shrouding the opening chapters of human history. With every new discovery and every ongoing debate, the allure of these two monuments only grows stronger, urging scientists to keep searching for answers to the eternal mysteries that remain buried deep in Egypt's golden sands. The appearance of the Anunnaki and the evolution of humankind. According to the ancient records of the Sumerians, the journey of the Anunnaki on Earth began with a single purpose: to mine gold in order to save their own planet. Over thousands of years, the Anunnaki steadily expanded their activities, establishing settlements in the most fertile regions. New mining sites and cities sprang up one after another, all serving the quest for this precious resource. Yet, as time went by, deep divisions began to form within the ranks of the Anunnaki themselves. Those who were forced to perform grueling labor in the mines grew increasingly resentful of the harsh living conditions and the exhausting work. Tensions between the different classes only grew, presenting a serious challenge for the Anunnaki leaders. To resolve this labor crisis, the Anunnaki leaders decided to pursue a breakthrough solution. They began to conduct large-scale genetic experiments with the ambitious goal of creating an entirely new worker species. Using their advanced knowledge of biology, the Anunnaki combined their own genetic material with that of the native primates on Earth. The result of these experiments was the emergence of primitive workers, being strong enough to endure the rigors of mining, yet intelligent enough to follow their master's commands. From a modern perspective, this is considered the moment when Homo sapiens, our own species, first appeared and became the main labor force for the Anunnaki's massive mining projects. In addition, the ancient texts reveal that this act of creation did not happen all at once. Before achieving success, the Anunnaki conducted many different experiments. It is possible that some ancient human species, such as the Neanderthals or Denisovans, were the results of these early, incomplete attempts, preliminary steps before the emergence of modern humans. These species once coexisted on Earth, creating a complex and mysterious picture of evolution. It was this sequence of events that helped shape the history of humanity, leaving a profound mark on our development, one whose mysteries we are still trying to unravel today. The sunken city in the Gulf of Cambay. At the beginning of the 21st century, the international scientific community was stunned when Indian researchers announced an unprecedented archaeological discovery. Beneath the murky, silt-laden waters of the Gulf of Cambay, off the western coast of India, traces of two ancient cities were found, buried under the ocean for thousands of years. The exploration began when advanced sonar equipment captured strange images of large-scale structures, all lying deep beneath the sea. But the findings didn't stop at imaging. Scientists continued their research by collecting samples from the layers of sediment surrounding these ruins to conduct radiocarbon dating. The results were nothing short of astonishing. Many of the artifacts were dated as far back as 7000 BC, a time when most of humanity's great civilizations had not yet appeared on the historical map. This discovery forced many archaeologists to completely rethink their theories about the development of ancient societies, since it was now clear that a civilization capable of city building, urban planning, and using durable construction materials had existed long before ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. What makes this story even more mysterious is that, for thousands of years, Indian folklore has preserved legends of cities lost beneath the sea. Ancient texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana contain vague descriptions of once glorious civilizations that flourished along the coast, only to be swept away by a terrifying catastrophe from the ocean. These legends, long dismissed as mere fantasy, suddenly took on new life as archaeological evidence began to surface off the coast of the Gulf of Cambay. Beyond that, this discovery also breathed new life into the immortal legend of Atlantis, as told by the Greek philosopher Plato. According to his account, there once existed an advanced civilization that was swallowed by the sea in a single night, sinking into oblivion, never to be seen again. The uncanny similarity between the Western tale of Atlantis and India's legends of sunken cities has sparked a fascinating hypothesis. Could there once have been a global civilization, far more advanced than we ever imagined, that was wiped out by a natural disaster, a disaster whose secrets humanity has yet to fully understand? The mystery of the elongated skulls in Peru. In the arid desert region of Paracas, Peru, archaeologists uncovered one of the most unusual and controversial mysteries in human history. In 1928, archaeologist Julio Tello discovered an ancient cemetery where hundreds of bodies had been buried with strange burial rituals. What shocked scientists most were the abnormally elongated skulls unearthed at this site. Not only were these skulls distinctly longer in shape, but they were also 25% larger and 60% heavier than ordinary human skulls. When placed side by side with a modern skull, the difference became even more striking, raising the question of whether these were truly the remains of ancient humans, or perhaps the legacy of an entirely different species. Amid growing curiosity and debate, samples of hair, teeth, and small bone fragments from the Paracas skulls were sent to independent laboratories around the world for DNA testing. The results stunned the scientific community. The mitochondrial DNA sequences revealed a strange mutation never before seen in any human, primate, or known animal species. Even geneticists analyzing the data had to admit that the owners of these skulls would have been completely incompatible with modern humans for reproduction. Some have argued that these might be the remains of a previously unknown human branch, and some have even raised the possibility of an extraterrestrial origin. However, the story of the Paracas elongated skulls has never ceased to spark controversy. Some scientists argue that these skulls are simply the result of head binding, an ancient practice found in various cultures worldwide, where the skulls of young children were shaped using cloth wrappings or wooden boards. This method was practiced in Asia, Africa, and South America. Yet, upon closer examination, many biological features of the Paracas skulls cannot be fully explained by the head binding theory. Aside from their shape, these skulls are also thicker than normal, have greater volume, and show clearly distinct bone structure. Notably, the cranial sutures display multiple differences compared to any known human population. To this day, there is still no definitive conclusion about the true origins of the elongated skulls of Paracas, and this mystery continues to attract the attention of both the scientific community and those fascinated by theories of ancient aliens. Göbekli Tepe. Lying quietly atop a dusty hill in southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is regarded as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the century. Dated to as much as 12,000 years old, this site was built thousands of years before the pyramids of Giza, outdistancing every other ancient monument ever known in human history. These are not just the remnants of nameless stone walls, but a sprawling architectural complex, with massive T-shaped pillars standing up to 5 meters high and weighing dozens of tons, arranged in large circular formations. Each stone here is carefully carved with images of animals and mysterious symbols that remain unsolved riddles to modern scientists. What has kept Göbekli Tepe at the center of heated debate for so many years is the mystery of the technological capabilities of those who built it, at a time when, according to traditional views, humans had only just emerged from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Long before they knew about metallurgy or the wheel, here they were able to move and erect gigantic stones with precision, organizing them into structures so sophisticated and solid that they have survived thousands of years against the forces of time and nature. These imposing stone pillars stand alone on a desolate plain, bearing traces of a mysterious civilization that history itself seems to have forgotten. The appearance of Göbekli Tepe has upended everything we thought we knew about the evolution of humanity. Archaeologists constantly debate whether our prehistoric ancestors could really have possessed the construction techniques and social organization needed to create such a grand monument. Some scholars believe this was an astronomical observatory, a religious center, or even the world's first temple. Others suspect the influence of knowledge that exceeded anything the ancients should have known. Although there is still no final answer, every new survey at Göbekli Tepe leaves scientists both amazed and awestruck by what ancient people were able to accomplish. As the afternoon sun falls across the weathered stones, Göbekli Tepe is not just a reminder of a distant past. It awakens a longing to understand the true origins of human intelligence and creativity on this planet. Its unanswered mysteries continue to quietly challenge future generations, urging us to keep searching and exploring. The hybrid culture of humanity. Çatalhöyük is one of the most important and mysterious archaeological sites in human history, located in the fertile plains of Turkey. Dated to at least 9,500 years ago, this site has become a symbol of an ancient culture that once flourished during a period when official history remains largely obscure. Since 1958, archaeologists have continuously excavated here, gradually uncovering an ancient city that existed through many millennia. They discovered 18 layers of cities stacked upon one another, each layer preserving traces of reconstruction, periods of growth and decline, evidence that Çatalhöyük witnessed major upheavals in the story of ancient communities. What truly sets Çatalhöyük apart is the complexity and sophistication of its social organization and construction techniques. The deeper scientists dug, the more they found structures arranged in logical and even astonishingly advanced ways for a prehistoric era. Within the heart of the city lies an ancient temple featuring a grand altar, long benches for ceremonies, vivid wall paintings, and bull skulls used as sacred decorations. When the city was abandoned, this very temple was buried by its inhabitants in a special ritual meant to preserve its mysteries for future generations. Catalhuyuk's culture is also renowned for its worship of the mother goddess. Archaeological evidence suggests that women played a central role in both the spiritual and social lives of the community, possibly even holding ultimate power. Yet, to this day, researchers have not been able to determine the true origins of this culture, nor have they uncovered whether Catalhuyuk has any connection to even more enigmatic civilizations like Göbekli Tepe. These lingering mysteries have made Catalhuyuk a focal point for theories about a hybrid society, one where humanity mingled with ancient bloodlines, opening up countless new questions about our collective history. Göbekli Circle. Göbekli Circle, set on the fields of Germany, stands as one of Europe's most remarkable archaeological sites, not only for its age of more than 6,900 years, but also for its role in the story of human civilization. Archaeologists have dated the structure to the 49th century BC, making it vivid evidence of an early culture emerging in Central Europe, where Neolithic people first began to lay the foundations for the science of sky watching. Viewed from above, Göbekli Circle appears as a giant labyrinth, roughly 75 meters in diameter, made up of concentric circles surrounded by an earthen ditch and two large wooden palisades. What sets it apart are its three entrances, each precisely aligned with the points of sunrise and sunset on the winter solstice. This level of accuracy reveals that our ancient ancestors were already observing astronomical phenomena and calculating cycles of time to support their social activities. But Göbekli Circle was not simply a solar observatory. It was also deeply connected to mysterious religious rituals. Excavations have revealed chilling evidence, such as decapitated human skulls, cattle bones, and the remains of large fires. These findings suggest that vivid ceremonies once took place here, blending astronomy with the worship of supernatural forces and reflecting a deep-seated prehistoric belief in the workings of the universe. Today, Göbekli Circle is considered the oldest observatory in Europe, and perhaps even one of the first solar measuring sites in the world. Behind those silent rings lies a story of human discovery and the timeless desire to unlock nature's secrets, a story that marks the dawn of a new chapter in both science and spirituality. The stone structure in Galilee. The mysterious stone structure beneath the waters of Israel's Sea of Galilee has captured the attention of archaeologists ever since its discovery in 2013. During an underwater sonar survey, researchers detected a massive formation lying deep beneath the southwestern part of the lake. When divers approached, they realized this was no natural phenomenon, but a colossal cone-shaped structure, meticulously built from thousands of basalt stones, stacked with intention and care. This monument stands about 10 meters tall, with a diameter reaching 70 meters, far surpassing famous sites like Stonehenge in size. Its impressive dimensions and distinctive shape led experts to conclude that it was undoubtedly made by human hands, not by geological forces. Yet, the true mystery is that scientists have so far been unable to determine the exact age of the structure or uncover clear evidence of its original purpose. Several theories have been proposed. Some suggest that the structure was originally built on land, only to be submerged as the water level of the Sea of Galilee rose over time. Others speculate it might have served as a sacred ceremonial site, or even as a giant tomb for chieftains or special figures of an ancient society. There are also researchers who believe it may have been an astronomical observatory or connected to ritual activities tied to natural cycles. To this day, however, the secrets of the stone structure beneath the Sea of Galilee remain unsolved. No comprehensive archaeological excavation has yet taken place, so all theories remain speculative. As a result, this monument continues to challenge the curiosity of scientists and history enthusiasts alike, adding yet another layer of mystery and intrigue to the already fascinating past of the Middle East. Adam's Calendar. Hidden among the wild hills of South Africa lies a mystery that challenges everything we think we know about human history. Adam's Calendar. Many researchers have called it the oldest calendar in the world, with an estimated age that could reach as far back as 75,000 years. From the moment it was discovered, Adam's Calendar attracted special attention from archaeologists thanks to its unusual shape and impressive scale. The entire structure is a massive circle of stones, with each slab weighing several tons, deliberately arranged in a precise order and remaining steadfast for tens of thousands of years without shifting. When scientists began to study the site, they quickly realized that the stones were not placed at random. The alignment of the standing stones, the distances between them, and their orientations all demonstrated a level of understanding in mathematics and astronomy that far exceeded what is usually imagined for prehistoric people. Some theories suggest that Adam's calendar was actually an ancient observatory built by a civilization that has since disappeared from history. Here, ancient people may have used the position of the stones to measure time, track the movements of the sun and moon, and observe other celestial events. But Adam's calendar is more than just a timekeeping tool. It also hints at the existence of a sophisticated society, with knowledge and technical abilities far beyond what we have traditionally believed about early humans. At a time when most ancient civilizations around the world had only just begun a few thousand years ago, the appearance of a monument estimated to be 75,000 years old raises countless questions about its origins, its purpose, and the secrets still hidden within this mysterious circle of stones. Medieval human bones and Nazi propaganda. Beneath the thick walls of the ancient Prague castle, in the very heart of Europe, archaeologists in 1928 uncovered a discovery that sent shockwaves through the research community: a medieval human skeleton dating back to the 10th century. What made this finding so remarkable was the way the remains had been carefully buried alongside a sword and two sharp daggers, conjuring images of a powerful warrior or perhaps a noble figure who once lived in this land. At a time when Czechoslovakia was still a young nation on the map of Europe, this discovery was not only a scientific breakthrough but also a source of pride for a people who had just reclaimed their independence after years lost in the shadows of history. But just over a decade later, the storm of World War II swept everything away. When Nazi Germany marched into Czechoslovakia, that anonymous skeleton suddenly became a weapon of propaganda for the fascist regime. Under the control of the Nazi information machine, what had once been an achievement of archaeological research was twisted and repurposed as evidence for the so-called Aryan origins that Hitler and his associates sought to promote. They loudly declared that these remains were historical proof of German supremacy in Europe, using this claim to justify invasions and their thirst for global domination. In truth, history was being shamelessly exploited. Genuine scholars who were passionate about uncovering the region's past were forced to serve the dark ambitions of the regime. Many faced immense pressure and threats from the Nazi authorities. Anyone who dared to challenge the distorted narrative risked being banned from publishing, or worse, facing imprisonment and the loss of personal freedom. Honest research into the true origins of the skeleton and the cultural traits of the Slavic people was strictly prohibited from being released to the public. The story of the skeleton beneath Prague Castle is not only a strange chapter in the history of archaeology, it stands as a stark reminder of how the past can be manipulated when it falls into the hands of those hungry for power. It reminds us that historical truth is not always easily respected or communicated, especially when overshadowed by grand political schemes. What remains buried beneath the earth is often more than just evidence of ancient lives. It can also serve as a warning to future generations about the dangers of distortion and the misuse of science for inhuman purposes. The mysterious ancient dolmen with a headless skeleton and missing major bones. Amid the wild and untouched landscape of northern Europe, a massive ancient stone monument has lain silent for thousands of years, holding within it secrets that challenge our understanding of prehistoric burial rituals. This is a dolmen, an imposing megalithic tomb built during the Neolithic era, famous for its monumental architecture and long-standing ties to archaeological mysteries. Yet, what truly shocked researchers was not the structure itself, but what remained inside. When archaeologists carefully removed layers of ancient soil and reached the center of the dolmen, they did not find anything familiar, as is usually seen in traditional burials. Instead, they were faced with a human skeleton that was missing its head, with the entire skull absent along with several other large bones, such as the femur and arm bones. In addition, many of the smaller bones, including those from the hands, feet, and even teeth, were also missing. These signs immediately raised a series of questions about the reasons behind such an unusual absence. What made this discovery even more mysterious was that there were absolutely no signs of violence on the bones that remained. There were no cuts, no fractures from impact, nor any evidence that the individual had suffered an attack or been murdered. At the same time, all archaeological traces showed that the tomb had never been disturbed or looted since its construction up until the time it was discovered. This ruled out the possibility that the remains had been stolen or destroyed after burial. Because of these striking differences, many archaeologists began to suspect that this was evidence of a unique burial ritual from the Neolithic era. It is possible that ancient people deliberately removed the head and certain large bones of the deceased, perhaps as part of a spiritual practice or to mark a special social status. However, the specific reasons behind such actions remain a major question. There are no historical records, nor are there any clear folk legends that explain why such a strange burial custom ever existed. Within the quiet space of the dolmen, the mysteries surrounding the deceased and the culture that once thrived here continue to challenge modern scientists. Was this simply an exception in burial history, or does it hint at a complex system of religious and social beliefs that we have yet to uncover? The answer remains buried with the scattered bones, leaving an unsolved mystery at the heart of this ancient land. The Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe. The Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe stands as one of the most magnificent ancient structures in Africa, leaving a profound mark on the land that is now modern-day Zimbabwe. Around 900 years ago, deep within the heart of the continent, an enormous stone city took shape, covering more than 7 square kilometers. This city was built entirely by human hands, using a unique dry stone masonry technique that did not rely on any kind of mortar. The sturdy stone walls curved gracefully through valleys and across hillsides, reaching heights of over 10 meters in places, a lasting testament to the remarkable engineering skills of the ancient people who lived here. This ancient city was once the supreme center of power, serving as the residence of the royal family and the noble class of ancient Zimbabwe. The most prominent area is the Great Enclosure, a massive walled complex that surrounded the king's palace and his private quarters. In other sections of the city, archaeological evidence suggests that tens of thousands of people once lived here, forming a thriving and prosperous community. Excavations have uncovered a wealth of valuable artifacts, including mysterious soapstone sculptures, intricately crafted pottery, dazzling gold jewelry, and ivory tusks carved with great skill. These objects not only reflect a life of material abundance but also reveal a vast trade network that connected Great Zimbabwe to many other regions across Africa, and even to distant cultures far beyond the continent. Excavating the Parthian tomb. While constructing a cemetery for COVID-19 victims in the Kurdistan region of Iran, a team of workers unexpectedly discovered a series of ancient burial sites, opening the door for archaeologists to step into the world of the Parthian Empire, one of the oldest and greatest civilizations that ruled over the Middle East from 247 BC to 224 AD. Among these discoveries, one large tomb stood out because of its highly unusual burial method. Inside a massive terracotta jar, archaeologists found the skeleton of a warrior, with the spear still deeply embedded in his chest, as a final trace of a life-or-death battle. Based on the position and arrangement, it was clear that the person buried here belonged to the warrior class, and likely died heroically on the battlefield. The spear through the chest is a painful testament to the dramatic final moments of this soldier's life. Notably, the practice of burying the dead in large jars is a signature feature of Parthian culture. The ancients believed that the jar was not only a way to protect the body, but also a second home that would help the soul continue its journey in the afterlife. These jars were often made from thick clay, sturdy in shape, and spacious enough to hold the entire body, along with personal items, weapons, and sometimes even jewelry or grave goods to serve in the next world. The discovery of even more Parthian jar tombs during the expansion of the cemetery has revealed even more clearly the unique burial customs and beliefs of this era. Each jar holds a destiny, a story about a warrior, a merchant, or an ordinary person who lived more than 2,000 years ago, now becoming a precious piece in the journey to decode the history of a land that was once a crossroads of brilliant civilizations. These archaeological discoveries not only help to reconstruct the spiritual life of the Parthians, but also show a mysterious continuity between death and life, as thousand-year-old secrets suddenly appear in the heart of the modern world, reminding us of the depth of the past and all the things still hidden beneath the surface of the land we think we know so well. Carrier pigeons and the secret message in a bone capsule. Amid the grand stories of generals and modern weaponry during World War II, there is a quieter but equally crucial chapter: the story of carrier pigeons. In a time when radio communications were constantly at risk of being intercepted or jammed, these birds became a vital lifeline for delivering top-secret messages between Allied units. Seemingly impossible missions, such as breaking the Enigma code or preparing for the historic Normandy landings, all depended on the endurance and loyalty of these small, winged warriors. Few people might imagine that an ordinary pigeon could alter the outcome of a battlefield. Intelligence units would select only the strongest birds, training them to fly across skies filled with snipers and even falcons, specially trained by the Germans to intercept enemy messenger pigeons. Many pigeons never returned, but each successful flight played a part in determining the fate of thousands. One particular case sends chills down the spine when considering the secrets still hidden in history. In a modest house in England, as the homeowner was dismantling an old, long-sealed fireplace, he unexpectedly discovered the preserved body of a pigeon lodged deep within the chimney. What startled him even more was that attached to the bird's leg bone was a tiny capsule. Inside that capsule was a slip of paper containing a coded message from World War II. The writing on the small piece of paper has yet to be deciphered to this day. The homeowner contacted several museums, historical organizations, and even renowned places like Bletchley Park, where experts once cracked military codes for the British. Yet all of them either declined to get involved or responded with vague, evasive answers. This unusual silence only deepened his suspicion that the message might contain sensitive secrets, possibly linked to operations never officially recorded in history, or even to controversial events that authorities would rather keep hidden. It is through small stories like these that we gain a deeper understanding of the crucial role carrier pigeons played in the deadliest conflict in history. They did not just carry information. At times, they also carried mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. And perhaps, somewhere in the old houses of Europe, there are still undiscovered messages waiting to be found, waiting for the day they will shed new light on the shadowy corners of World War II, the empire burned to glass. For centuries, the world has been haunted by the theory that an ancient civilization might once have existed, one powerful enough to harness and use atomic energy thousands of years ago. Ancient mythologies and epic tales like India's Mahabharata recount great wars between gods, fought with what they called iron thunderbolts. Even modern scientists, such as Robert Oppenheimer, have studied ancient Sanskrit texts and reflected on the destructive power described within those stories. If these ideas were limited to myths and mystical references, the theory of an ancient nuclear war might have quickly faded into obscurity. But everything began to change when people discovered physical evidence that defies easy explanation. In 1932, a British geologist named Patrick Clayton was crossing the Sahara Desert near the Sard Plateau in Egypt, a region that locals call the Great Sand Sea. During his journey, Clayton heard a crunching sound beneath his wheels, and when he stopped to investigate, he realized he was driving over a field of glass spread across the scorching desert. Experts have measured that, in order to transform sand into solid glass, the temperature must exceed 3,300 degrees Fahrenheit. These discoveries are not limited to the Sahara. Similar pieces of desert glass have been found in Libya and even as far away as the Mojave Desert in the United States. In many cases, scientists have tried to explain this phenomenon with the theory of meteorite impacts. Yet, the strange thing is that there are no traces of meteorite craters in any of these regions. Satellite imagery and ultrasound scans reveal no signs of impact craters, making the cosmic collision theory increasingly unconvincing. But the story does not end there. In the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, a thriving center of the Indus Valley civilization over 4,000 years ago, archaeologists discovered dozens of skeletons lying face down on the ground, as if people had been walking through the streets only to be wiped out suddenly by some unimaginable disaster. In particular, many of these skeletons show evidence of severe radiation exposure, similar to survivors of modern atomic blasts. Even the bricks and stones in Mohenjo-Daro have been fused into glass. These scattered clues, from Egypt to India and all the way across the globe, suggest that something extraordinary happened in the distant past. An event so powerful it could turn sand to glass, melt stone, and leave traces of radiation that remain to this day. The Great Flood. According to what has been preserved in Sumerian legend, the story of the Great Flood is one of the most earth-shattering events in the history of humankind. Around 11,000 BC, when conflict among the Anunnaki gods reached its peak, Enlil decided to carry out a devastating act to wipe out all of humanity, along with every hybrid creature that had been created through earlier experiments. A cataclysmic flood of unprecedented scale was unleashed. Water rose to cover all the land, sweeping away every city and erasing every trace of the civilizations that had once flourished. No one on Earth could withstand the overwhelming force of the floodwaters. Yet, amid this catastrophe, there was a faint glimmer of hope for the survival of humankind. Enki, one of the most compassionate of the Anunnaki gods, secretly warned Ziusudra, a mortal known for his honesty and wisdom. Guided by Enki's instructions, Ziusudra began to build a special vessel, one that could withstand the immense power of the deluge. He prepared carefully, selecting a small group of trustworthy companions to join him on this rare journey of survival. When the flood broke out, everything was swept away in the endless sea of water. The world was plunged into devastation, and all that belonged to the past was buried deep beneath the ocean. Only Ziusudra's vessel and its survivors had a chance to face another day. After the waters finally receded, they set foot on dry land once again, becoming the first to begin anew and rebuild human civilization in the aftermath of disaster. From this point, a new chapter began, one born from those resilient people who overcame the calamity through courage and the guidance of the gods. The first vampire legend. The legend of the vampire has long been tied to darkness, cold, and the deepest fears lurking in the human mind. Yet, few people know that the first terrifying wave of this creature did not begin in the famous land of Transylvania, but actually started in Serbia in the early 18th century. The story began with Peter Plogajowicz, a farmer living in the small village of Petrovgrad. After his death in 1725, a series of villagers began dying mysteriously in a short span of time. This disturbing coincidence led many to believe that Peter had returned from the grave in the form of a bloodthirsty creature, recorded as the first vampire in European history. Fear spread quickly through the tiny village, soon crossing Serbia's borders and reaching other regions of Europe. Stories circulated about Peter's ghostly presence. He was said to appear in the dead of night, quietly knocking on doors to drain the blood of those closest to him. Panic gripped the villagers, who became so terrified that many refused to step outside once night fell. The hysteria reached its peak when the townspeople decided to exhume Peter's grave in search of the truth behind the rumors. When they opened the coffin, they were horrified to find his body perfectly preserved, as if he had only just died, his mouth still stained with fresh blood. Overwhelmed by fear, the villagers decided to drive a sharp stake through Peter's heart in an attempt to destroy the evil spirit of legend. The incident in Petrovgrad was not the only case. Just a few years later, a similar event occurred involving Arnold Pauli, another Serbian man suspected of becoming a vampire after his death. Stories of undecayed corpses, mysterious deaths, and the shadowy presence of vampires began to spread like wildfire, fueling a wave of fear that swept from Serbia into Austria, Germany, France, and even England. Frenzied crowds dug up graves and drove stakes through bodies to prevent the dead from rising, turning once peaceful cemeteries into places of dread for many years. This turmoil eventually forced the authorities to intervene. In the Habsburg lands, the government issued strict decrees forbidding people from exhuming or destroying corpses on their own, allowing such investigations only under official supervision. These regulations were intended to halt the panic and restore social order, aiming to put an end to the vampire epidemic in European history. Yet, no matter how effective these administrative measures were, the tale of the undead has endured in the collective memory of millions, becoming a timeless source of inspiration for legends, novels, and works of art ever since. the era when Earth had no moon. When it comes to the greatest mysteries of the universe, perhaps nothing is stranger than the legend of a time when the Earth existed without the moon. This story appears not only in folk traditions, but is also recorded in many ancient texts from both East and West, leaving a lasting impression on generations throughout history. Thousands of years ago, Greek philosophers wrote about a time when the night sky was completely devoid of our familiar satellite. Thinkers such as Democritus and Anaxagoras discussed an era before the moon existed, and they believed that there was once an ancient race of people who lived on Earth long before the moon appeared. Aristotle also spoke of the Arcadians, a people who existed before there was a moon, surviving on acorns in the mountain forests. Beyond Greece, other manuscripts, such as those by Plutarch and Lucian, also preserved similar legends. It does not stop there. Even the Bible contains passages describing a time before moonlight shone down upon the world. Some verses in the book of Job and ancient Psalms refer to a period before there was a moon. Perhaps even more intriguing is the legend of the native Colombians of the Andean highlands, who tell of an age when the sky had never seen the moon, and only later was this satellite placed in the heavens. These strange stories from all over the world have sparked countless theories and debates over the centuries. Modern scientists believe the moon formed about 4.5 billion years ago, after a violent collision between the young Earth and a Mars-sized object. The debris from that impact eventually came together to form the moon, which slowly settled into its present orbit. Other theories suggest the moon was once a satellite of another planet, such as Venus, and was somehow captured by Earth's gravity. Still, the curious parallels between ancient legends of a world without the moon and the findings of modern science leave many people wondering, are these old tales a distant memory passed down through generations? Or are they myths reflecting humanity's longing to explain the origins of the universe? And if there truly was such a time, how did it change life, the environment, and the evolution of all living things on Earth? These questions remain unanswered, leaving us with one more unsolved mystery to ponder: the Irish bog body mummy. Among the archaeological mysteries that have troubled researchers for years, the story of the bog body mummies in Ireland has always stirred a special curiosity. It all began when a local resident, passing through a remote bog near the village of Beleggy in Northern Ireland, unexpectedly discovered fragments of human bones lying just beneath the surface. Overwhelmed by fear, this person immediately notified the police, thinking they had stumbled upon the scene of a modern crime. But the story soon took a completely different turn when investigators and archaeological experts arrived and began a careful excavation. Initial forensic analysis determined that these were the remains of a teenager, likely between the ages of 13 and 17, who had died a very long time ago. Using modern techniques such as radioactive isotope analysis, experts learned that the body had been lying under the peat bog for between 2,000 and 2,500 years, dating back to Ireland's distant Iron Age. The discovery of a remarkably well-preserved human body in such conditions stunned the archaeological community. Especially noteworthy is that this was the first time radiocarbon dating had ever been applied to a bog body in Northern Ireland. From there, a series of major questions began to emerge. Why was this teenager's body buried so deep in the bog, in a place with almost no sign of ancient human settlement? Was this the victim of a brutal murder? Or had the youth been sacrificed in some mysterious ritual to appease ancient gods? Some researchers believe that the body's discovery in an area nearly devoid of evidence of ancient habitation further suggests that the victim was deliberately brought here, possibly as part of a religious sacrifice, a practice known to be common in Iron Age Europe. The story of the mysterious museum in Ecuador, the story of Father Crespi, and the lost treasure of Ecuador has always intrigued listeners, thanks to a level of mystery that goes beyond the boundaries of conventional archaeology. Father Carlos Crespi was an Italian missionary who spent nearly 60 years living and working in Ecuador. There, he not only spread his faith but also formed deep relationships with the local indigenous communities. Because of his kindness and the respect he earned, local people gradually brought him countless strange artifacts, many of which were believed to originate from ancient cultures, and some even seemed to lie beyond the understanding of modern scholars. Father Crespi's collection quickly became a vast treasure trove, with tens of thousands of artifacts made from every imaginable material, from gold and silver to stone and wood, adorned with symbols, scripts, and carvings that could not be easily traced to any known culture. Many of the items displayed unusual patterns, and some were even compared to the styles of ancient Babylon or Sumer, sparking speculation that there might have been mysterious migrations, exchanges, or contact between ancient civilizations in Asia and the Americas. Yet, this treasure was never systematically studied or made widely available to the public. After many years being kept in a small museum that Father Crespi himself established within his church, a devastating fire destroyed most of the collection in 1962. The few pieces that survived the blaze soon vanished without a trace after Father Crespi's death, leaving behind a host of unanswered questions and deep regret among archaeologists and history enthusiasts. The true origin of these artifacts remains a subject of debate even decades later. Some believe they were simply local objects around which legends were woven, while others have put forward bold theories linking them to faraway civilizations such as Sumer. In this way, the legend of Father Crespi's lost treasure has grown ever more compelling, opening up a series of unanswered questions about human history, mysterious ancient encounters, and the secrets still buried beneath the earth of Ecuador. The SS officer's diary and the mystery of the lost Nazi treasure. Nearly 80 years after the end of World War II, the mysteries surrounding Nazi treasures continue to fascinate and astonish people around the world. At the beginning of the search for what many consider to be the greatest lost treasure in modern history stands a diary that remained buried in secrecy for almost a century. The true owner of this diary was an officer in the SS who chose the alias Michels to conceal his identity. Within the yellowed pages of the diary, researchers uncovered meticulous notes about a scheme of unprecedented scale, one directed by none other than Heinrich Himmler, one of the most powerful figures in the Nazi regime. The plan's aim was to gather and seize all treasures, gold, and priceless works of art from the countries of Europe, then hide them in places no one could ever imagine. What shocked historians even more was that the diary not only recounted the story of these massive thefts, but also listed exactly 11 locations where these vast fortunes were buried. Among the most secret sites was an underground well hidden beneath the Hochberg Palace, located in a small village in Poland. Based on the diary's contents and independent sources, the gold stashed there is believed to have come from the National Bank of Breslau. Its value is estimated in the billions of dollars, a sum that still lingers painfully in the collective memory of nations devastated by the Nazis. However, the fate of the diary itself is as mysterious as the treasures it describes. After the war ended, the diary did not fall into the hands of the authorities or historians, but instead came into the possession of a Masonic lodge in Germany. This lodge, based in the small town of Quedlinburg, quietly safeguarded the document for decades. After many twists and turns, it was not until 2019, under mounting public pressure and a growing sense of historical responsibility, that the Masons finally handed over the diary to a Polish charity, along with a public apology for what had happened in the past. The diary's return has reignited a treasure hunt of unprecedented excitement across Europe. This surge of interest is not only because of the treasure's immense material value, but also because every line in the diary offers a glimpse into history, carrying the hope of unlocking mysteries that have remained hidden for generations. The buried Nazi gold coin hoard. In 2015, deep within the quiet forests of Germany, an amateur treasure hunter made one of the rarest historical discoveries in recent memory. When his metal detector gave off an unusual signal beneath the soft earth, he had no idea he was about to uncover traces of a turbulent era. Digging deeper, he found a hoard of 217 gleaming gold coins, each one bearing the imprint of Europe's history. These coins originated from Belgium, France, and Italy, minted in the 19th century, and once circulated through the financial systems of the old continent. But the value of this treasure lies not just in its weight in gold, but also in the mysteries attached to it. Alongside the ancient coins, there were also seals and insignias of Nazi Germany, as well as the stamp of the German National Bank. This is clear evidence that the gold had once been taken from the central bank during the war, most likely in the final, desperate days, as Nazi Germany was collapsing into chaos. Fearing confiscation by the advancing Soviet or American armies, someone had hastily buried the entire fortune at the base of a tree, hoping to preserve a piece of wealth amid the regime's downfall. As time passed, the tree that had once protected the hoard toppled over, sending the coins even deeper into the cold earth for decades. It was only when the treasure hunter happened to pass by that the gold finally saw the light of day once more. The discovery quickly attracted the attention of archaeologists and the public, not just for its material value, but also for the story behind it. Experts confirmed that this find is vivid proof of the financial secrets buried by war, remnants of a past that still echoes through the forests of Germany. The underground city beneath Missouri. The story of an underground city beneath Missouri once stirred public fascination across America at the end of the 19th century. It all began in 1885, when miners in the city of Moberly unexpectedly discovered a vast system of caverns while digging for coal deep beneath the earth. According to reports from major newspapers of the time, as the miners carved a path further inside, they were astonished to find themselves standing before immense structures that seemed to belong in myth or legend. Solid stone walls stretched on endlessly, intricately carved stone statues stood in silence, and wide plazas and architectural works lay hidden in the shadows below ground. What made the story even stranger and harder to believe were the miners' claims that they had also seen giant skeletons, far larger than any normal human. Many believe these to be the remains of an ancient race that once lived there, fueling the legend of a mysterious civilization that vanished without a trace beneath Missouri. Detailed descriptions of this subterranean city quickly spread, capturing the imagination and curiosity of the public with the idea of a prehistoric metropolis hidden below. Yet when the initial news stories ended, readers were left with no concrete evidence of these strange discoveries. There were no photographs, no artifacts, and not a single archaeological excavation took place afterward to confirm the claims. As a result, the story of Missouri's underground city became a topic of debate for years to come. Some researchers have argued that it was nothing more than rumor or the product of imagination, exaggerated to capture public attention. The ME-262 jet buried beneath a Dutch airbase. In 2015, on a quiet field in the Netherlands, a group of aviation history enthusiasts undertook an excavation that lasted for days. They were searching not only for scattered fragments, but also for untold stories waiting to be unearthed. And beneath layers of earth built up over many seasons of rain and sun, they finally touched a priceless relic. The nearly intact remains of an ME-262 jet. The ME-262 is no ordinary name in the annals of aviation. It was the world's first operational jet fighter ever used in combat. Its arrival completely changed the balance of power in the skies over Europe, marking the dawn of a new era in military technology. But like many other ambitious projects of Nazi Germany, the fate of the ME-262 was tied to the chaotic collapse of the regime. As the front lines crumbled, German forces were forced to retreat in haste, leaving behind the advanced aircraft they had once hoped would turn the tide of war. The ME-262 was discovered at an old airbase, a site that had once been crucial for Nazi air operations. What stunned researchers was that the jet had been buried deep in an old bomb crater, entombed in mud for decades, yet still retaining its engine, a 30mm cannon, and one wing. This remarkable state of preservation made it an extraordinarily rare and valuable artifact in the world of aviation. Experts believe there is a very high probability that this was among the first ME-262s ever mass-produced. In the final days of the war, German pilots may have been forced to destroy or bury their most advanced weapons to keep them from falling into Allied hands. The fact that such a cutting-edge plane could lie hidden beneath the earth for so many years only underscores the historical significance it carries. Every component, every detail of the fuselage stands as a living witness to a turning point between two worlds. One side a past marked by war and destruction, the other a future of technological advancement. Today, that ME-262 is more than just a museum display. It is a reminder of the incredible leaps in science and technology made during wartime. It sparks curiosity about secret inventions, desperate projects, and the last-ditch efforts of a dark era. Above all, the ME-262 is a bridge between past and present, a testament to humanity's drive to conquer the skies and a lasting lesson about the consequences of war that should never be forgotten. The discovery of a secret cemetery deep in the forests of Poland. Hidden beneath the dense canopy of Poland's forests lies a secret that has never before been revealed to the world. At a closely guarded excavation site, an archaeological team uncovered an ancient cemetery, one that holds haunting stories of the region's turbulent past. What lay before the researchers were mass graves and unusual ceramic urns containing the ashes of Germanic warriors who lived more than 2,000 years ago, dating back to the 1st century BC. The solemn and chilly atmosphere of the forest seemed only to heighten the mysterious nature of this burial ground. The urns were not merely containers for remains, but part of a rare funerary ritual, distinctly different from any burial practices recorded among other ancient cultures in the region. Because of this uniqueness, the archaeological team brought in a veterinarian to X-ray the urns, seeking to determine exactly what was inside and where it came from. The results indicated that most of the ashes likely belonged to Germanic warriors who had fought in brutal battles along what is now the border between Poland and Germany. Yet, the secrets of the Polish forest did not end there. As the excavation expanded, archaeologists unearthed a series of headless skeletons scattered just beneath the cold, muddy earth. These remains were identified as Nazi prisoners who had been buried in mass graves during the chaos of the last century. Rumors circulated that this was the result of Soviet Red Army reprisals, while other theories suggested the men had died during forced labor at a nearby explosives factory. The absence of skulls from many of the skeletons sparked a wave of debate. Some speculated that treasure hunters had dug up the graves to steal the skulls in hopes of finding valuables or for other personal reasons. Others put forward the more disturbing idea that savage rituals or inhumane acts had taken place in the forest during the war. There were even concerns that construction activities decades ago had accidentally destroyed ancient graves, erasing the most important parts of the skeletal remains. To this day, archaeologists continue to study and protect this site from looters, but even what has already been found serves as a powerful reminder of the tragedies and mysteries still lying beneath Europe's frozen soil. Under the shadow of Poland's forests, stories of war, loss, and strange rituals remain, still waiting to be fully understood. The mystery of prehistoric extinction. Neanderthals were once regarded as clumsy and wild beings in ancient legends, but today, scientists have come to realize that they represented a truly remarkable branch of human evolution. They possessed significant intelligence, knew how to craft tools, hunted with skill, and even invented ways to make fire and use pine resin as an ancient form of superglue to attach different parts of their tools together. Not only that, Neanderthals also adorned themselves with jewelry, practiced burial rituals, and cared for the elderly within their communities. What is particularly notable is that Neanderthals and modern humans actually met, interbred, and left traces of their genes in people living today. Yet, around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals suddenly disappeared from the evolutionary map, leaving behind a major mystery about the cause of their extinction. Many theories have been put forward to explain this disappearance. Some scientists believe that modern humans themselves triggered a wave of extinction through conflict, pushing Neanderthals out of their hunting grounds and shelters. Another theory highlights resource competition, where modern humans had an advantage in hunting, gathering, and reproduction, gradually driving Neanderthals from fertile territories and weakening their populations until they vanished. In addition, natural factors such as harsh climate changes, disease, or major shifts in ecosystems have all been mentioned as possible contributors to the downfall of this ancient human species. Although many archaeological and genetic findings have helped shed some light on the story, the mystery of Neanderthal extinction remains one of humanity's greatest unanswered questions. It stands as a historic tragedy and also a powerful reminder of the fragility of any species, no matter how dominant it once was on this planet. Terrifying sounds from the ancient world. Few artifacts in human history have evoked such a chilling feeling as the whistle of death, the death whistle of the ancient Aztecs. The story began with a chance discovery in the 1990s, when archaeologists unearthed a human skeleton buried deep within an ancient temple in Mexico. What made the find so remarkable was that, in the withered hand of the skeleton, experts discovered a strangely shaped ceramic object. At first, they assumed it was just an innocent toy. In reality, it turned out to be one of the oldest and most mysterious musical instruments ever found on Aztec soil. It took nearly 30 years and the arrival of modern 3D printing technology before scientists could accurately recreate the shape and inner structure of this whistle. They wanted to discover what it would sound like when played within the sacred spaces of ancient temples. The results were beyond anything they had imagined. When the death whistle was finally sounded, the noise it produced sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. The sound was a piercing, haunting wail, like the screams of thousands of souls crying out for help in the dead of night. Many described it as nothing less than a desperate scream from the world of the dead. These discoveries quickly sparked a wave of theories about the true purpose of the death whistle. Some scholars believe it was used by shamans during sacrificial rituals, where they played these eerie melodies to summon supernatural forces or guide the souls of the dead into the afterlife. The terrifying sound could have contributed to a sacred and spine-tingling atmosphere that dominated these ceremonies, striking fear into all who witnessed them. Another theory, however, suggests that the death whistle served as a psychological weapon in ancient warfare. Imagine an Aztec army marching onto the battlefield, with row after row of warriors blowing these whistles in unison, producing a sound that seemed to rise straight from the depths of hell. Any enemy hearing such a horrific noise would surely panic and lose morale before the battle even began. Archaeologists and historians still debate the true function of this whistle, but all agree that it is one of the most haunting instruments in human history. Today, thanks to modern technology, the death whistle of the Aztecs can be heard once again, reminding us of the rituals, battles, and terrors that once haunted the distant past of Mesoamerican civilization. The mysteries surrounding the death whistle remain, and every time its sound rises, it awakens in the listener a primal fear of that thin boundary between life and death. Brutal unsolved massacre at La Hoya. In the heart of ancient Spain, a chilling mystery was uncovered when archaeologists began excavations at the old settlement of La Hoya. What they found would send shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned professionals. Scattered beneath the silent earth were the remains of 13 people, all bearing horrific injuries. Time may have buried the screams and chaos of that day of slaughter, but the bones that remained still told a tragic story stretching back over 2,000 years. Researchers determined that these skeletons dated to around 365 BC, long before the Roman Empire set foot on the Iberian Peninsula. The marks on the bones revealed an almost unimaginable level of brutality. Some victims had been ruthlessly decapitated, others were missing arms, and nearly all bore traces of fire. This suggests they may have been burned after death, or perhaps even while still alive. What made the discovery even more heartbreaking for archaeologists was that not one of the victims received a proper burial. Their remains were left exposed among the ruins, denied the comfort of earth, standing as silent witnesses to a massacre forgotten by human memory. Despite years of analysis, scientists still have no way of knowing who these victims were, or who committed such a savage crime. All that is clear is that among the 13 were adults, teenagers, children, and even an infant. The diversity of ages only highlights the cruelty and inhumanity of the massacre, showing that the perpetrators spared no one in this small village. Today, the ruins of La Hoya are more than just an archaeological site. They are a grim reminder of the bloody past of ancient Europe. Before Roman civilization brought law and order, this land was steeped in violence, chaos, and bloody conflict, the effects of which are still etched in the charred fragments of bone lying beneath the soil. More than 2,000 years have passed, but the traces of that brutality have yet to yield their final answer. The disappearance of the 9th Legion. In the history of Rome, no unit has sparked more curiosity and debate than the 9th Legion. This was one of the most famous legions of ancient Rome, fighting across many lands throughout Europe. The legion is recorded as having taken part in major battles, defending the empire in far-flung provinces like Hispania, and later joining campaigns to conquer the island of Britain. However, in the early 2nd century, when the legion was dispatched to the wild, cold lands of Scotland to suppress uprisings among the native tribes, it suddenly vanished from all historical records. The disappearance of 5,000 elite Roman soldiers without leaving a single trace has become one of the greatest mysteries of ancient history. Many traditional historians believe the Ninth Legion was ambushed and utterly destroyed in the misty forests of Scotland, where harsh weather and rugged terrain left the Romans lost and unable to retreat. These soldiers may have walked into a brutal trap, been surrounded and annihilated to the last man, forever buried in some unknown forest, never to be found. However, other scholars have suggested a different theory, that the Ninth Legion was not wiped out, but instead quietly transferred to another battlefield, possibly in the Middle East, to confront rebellions there. They argue that if the Legion had truly been annihilated, Rome would have left at least some official records or archaeological evidence of a major battle. But the silence of the sources only adds to the intrigue. This gap in the historical record has given rise to countless legends. In Scotland, local people still tell stories of Roman soldiers in heavy armor, doomed to wander forever in the Highland mists. Restless spirits trapped between two worlds. The image of ghostly warriors marching silently across lonely moors has become deeply embedded in the imagination of generations, turning the fate of the Ninth Legion into not just a question for archaeologists, but a haunting mystery for all who love history and legend. The discovery of two noble graves and the mystery of the faceless woman's skeleton. During an excavation near the ruins of an old castle in Germany, archaeologists made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the research community. Beneath layers of moss-covered earth and stone, they found two graves side by side, belonging to a noble couple who lived nearly 1,000 years ago. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The arrangement of the graves and the burial objects, all exquisite jewelry, a dagger, a beautiful belt, and a ceremonial staff, clearly reflected the high status of those buried there. But what the research team could never forget was the skeleton of the woman lying next to the nobleman's grave. Upon examination, they were stunned to find that every facial bone of her skeleton was missing in a way that defied explanation. There was no trace of the jaw, cheekbones, or even the nose bone. Even more bizarre, the grave itself showed no signs of disturbance. The earth and stones above were undisturbed, and all valuable burial objects remained intact, ruling out grave robbery or external vandalism. The inexplicable absence of the woman's entire facial skeleton led scientists to propose a host of theories. Some suggested she might have suffered a horrific accident that destroyed her face before burial. Others suspected this could have been the result of a special burial ritual, or perhaps even a form of punishment meant to target the deceased's honor or reputation. Yet so far, there has been no evidence that the grave was ever dug up or violated, nor has any historical record or regional burial tradition mentioned deliberately removing facial bones during interment. The position of the graves, right against the castle's defensive walls, further supports the idea that these were members of the elite, possibly the castle's owning family or individuals who held important roles in society at the time. Moreover, other graves nearby followed a standard pattern, with nothing unusual about their construction or the condition of the remains, making the faceless woman's skeleton truly unique and all the more perplexing to this day. The mystery of the noble woman with the missing face remains unsolved. The unanswered questions continue to challenge archaeologists and open yet another mysterious chapter in the quest to understand the dramatic, often tragic history of medieval Europe. Identifying General Charles Etienne Gudin. Nearly 2 centuries have passed, but the story of a brilliant general, Napoleon Bonaparte's close friend, has come to life again, thanks to modern scientific advances. This is the story of Charles Etienne Gudin, the famed general who shared his formative years with Napoleon at military school, and then fought by his side on many of Europe's battlefields. Yet, it was the disastrous Russian campaign of 1812 that brought Gudin's glorious life to a sudden end. During a brutal battle near the city of Smolensk, Gudin was struck by cannon fire and forced to have his leg amputated right there on the battlefield. In the harsh conditions faced by an army exhausted from hunger and cold, the general's wound quickly became gangrenous. After 3 days of agonizing struggle, he breathed his last, leaving Napoleon and his comrades plunged into grief in the midst of the nightmare that was the failed campaign. After his death, Gudin's remains were buried by his fellow soldiers in a simple grave beneath an open-air dance floor in Smolensk. His heart, however, was carefully removed, preserved, and taken back to France as a symbol of loyalty, unbreakable friendship, and the deep sorrow Napoleon felt for his old companion. It was later enshrined in Paris, with Godin's name inscribed on the Arc de Triomphe, a permanent tribute to his service to France. It took nearly 200 years for French and Russian researchers to finally identify the remains buried beneath the dance floor, thanks to advanced DNA analysis. By comparing genetic samples from the bones to DNA from Godin's living relatives, scientists confirmed beyond any doubt that these were the remains of the gifted yet ill-fated general who had stood beside Napoleon during Europe's most turbulent times. This discovery not only brought closure to a mystery that had lasted for generations, but also stands as a vivid testament to the tragedy of the Russian campaign. Deep beneath the cold earth of distant Russia, Godin remains a symbol of loyalty, the spirit of the warrior, and a somber reminder of the price of power and ambition. The stone structure in Lake MacDonald. The mysterious stone structure at the bottom of Lake MacDonald in Canada, discovered in 2005, has raised major questions in the archaeological community. During a project to survey the lake bed, a team of divers happened upon a massive stone weighing around 450 kilograms, perfectly balanced on top of 7 smaller stones, all lying deep beneath layers of mud and frigid water. At first, the size and position of the stones led many to believe it was nothing more than a natural formation, created over time by ice, snow, or shifting currents. However, after thorough examination by geologists and archaeologists, it became clear that the smaller stones below were intentionally arranged to form a sturdy platform supporting the large stone above. What's more, the big stone itself features unusually straight edges and almost perfectly flat surfaces, features that only strengthened the theory that this was a man-made structure from prehistoric times, not a random product of nature. Based on the layers of sediment and the thickness of the mud covering the structure, experts believe it has been there for thousands of years, possibly from a time when Lake MacDonald's water level was much lower, allowing people easier access to the area. Even so, no one has been able to determine the original purpose of this structure, nor the identity of the people who built this remarkable stone formation. If you found these mysterious stories fascinating, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on our next discoveries. See you in the next video.